Hey, welcome to JAC Knives. We went to the swap meet and we found a few old files. I found one in particular that I thought would make a cool knife, and for this project, a lot of the files that you'll get are not going to be, they won't have this handle built into them. I thought it looked kind of cool, and maybe we'll develop into the shape of the knife itself. Most of the old files that I've found in the past, or something like this, where you've got this tang, this kind of sharp part, and this one that's already been annealed in the fire pit. But we're going to take this little video and make it from beginning to end. So we've bought the file, like I said, and now the next thing you do is, before you anneal it and get it all dirty and stick it in the campfire, I get some graph paper and I draw it out. And so what I do is I just basically lay this on a piece, and you figure about, if you figure about the size of what it is, you can draw out a few different shapes, just trace around it, and I did that on a piece earlier just to save time. And so, and I drew out and basically just had the outlines, and then you just kind of pencil and you figure, oh, I want so much shape here, I want so much belly in the knife, and sometimes I'll draw 20 of these things off the file shape, just to kind of till I get the design I want. Because once you start cutting into the metal, there's not a lot of changes you can make. So, but I decided to incorporate this handle kind of into it, and I thought that'd make it look kind of cool. So that's the next step. Another suggestion I have is that when you make knives, when you start to make them, and you find a blank that you like, you trace it after you've cut it out and everything. You trace it so you save it for later, because once you put a handle on it, it's not very easy. So you can see, so this little guy here, that was an old file, and I think this one here. That was a piece of 01 tool steel, and I remind myself what I used, the material, and I always save pieces of the handle so that I can go back later. And for instance, for this guy right here, which I haven't done, we need to trace him. I didn't trace him. He's one of my earlier ones. I really like this. It's kind of a Skinner, but save the pieces of wood so you have an idea what the handle was, and I have it written down somewhere also. I've kept the different. And if you really like a design that you make, cut it out and save it, because I haven't made this knife yet, but I'm going to, probably with this heavier 01 tool steel here, but that's a future project. But for now, that's some handle material for this knife, but that's special. That's going to be a special video. I've been working on that one for a while. That's going to be cool. It's an old rasp. So, but we'll get into that. We'll get into making your sheaths and everything else. And I'm just a beginner, probably just like you might be. And if you're not a beginner, you probably don't want to watch this because it'll bore the heck out of you. But anyhow, thanks for watching, and we'll move on to annealing that file in the fire pit. So get a big fire going. Get a fire pit, a barbecue grill, something where you can get a piece of metal red hot, where you can stick it in and the whole thing will get glowing red hot. Somewhere you can anneal it. Okay. Alright, so I got a little bed of embers down in there. Take the file. This will sort of all settle on top of it, and I'll just leave that for now. Won't mess with it until tomorrow when everything's cooled off and I can get in there and dig it out. But that's how you anneal the metal. You make it soft enough so that you can work it, cut it, sand it, drill it, everything else. And then we'll go into heat treating the forge later. Alright, so I think we're going to go out to our fire pit and see if we can't dig out that fire. But I see our file. Alright. now that you have annealed the file and you've softened up that metal, if it is warped, you know, you can take it and you can put it in a vise and you can sort of bend it one way or the other or hammer it out. Most vices have a little anvil on them. I have an old piece of rail from the railroad that I use. Sometimes I'll hammer it out. But if you follow that tip and you lay it on the embers and you don't set it on top of, say, a piece of wood that would take longer to burn than the surrounding wood, you generally won't get too much warping. But it's bound to happen. At least one thing you know, if it warps, you know you got it hot enough. So, now that you have your file where we can work on it, you have your pattern. And one thing that I talked about earlier is drawing the pattern out on your graph paper, and that's a great way to do it. Just to get ideas of what you want. That's really just to sort of scribble out different type of shapes. I've been growing more accustomed to putting masking tape directly onto the file itself. So you can see this. Alright. Now, what are those orange lines on there? So, one way that I do most of my knives and the way that I cut things out is I take my angle grinder, like so, and the blade is very thin, okay? And so you can make, once you cut off this angle here, and let's see if I find a dark enough marker. I don't think this orange shows up. But once you cut off, once you make a cut there and you cut off, make a nice straight cut, staying away from the lines that are defining your knife, you then will make cuts at an angle, or actually so straight to the angle, and make these cuts so that they go right down. See, here's my line from my blade. Okay, you make cuts right down to that line. Careful not to go over the line, because you have to grind that out and you'll lose material. But you take this, like I said, the thin blade, and you make these cuts. Cut down, cut down, cut down, cut down, cut down. And then this, of course, won't be here. So these will be like this, because this material won't be here anymore. Alright, and then you take your angle grinder, and you, well, I'll show you here. I'm not going to use the angle grinder because it makes so much noise. So what I'll do is, hopefully you can see this, but I'll take, and I've got a flat wheel on here now, but pretend it's this wheel. And you'll take this and you get it at a comfortable angle, and you just make your cut, make your cut, make all those little cuts. And then once you have all those little cuts exposed, then you come in from another angle, and you might have to adjust it in the vise, but then you come from another angle and you connect the dots. You cut from one line to the next line to the next line. As you make those little tiny cuts, it's very easy to make a small controlled cut like that. You make those cuts, you connect the dots, and when you're done, you're left over with kind of a little bit of a rough edge, but you have the shape that you need. And then you do the same thing on the other side. You do the same thing up here. Now, if your blade isn't curved, no big deal. Some of my blades have this little curvature in here, and when I have that curvature, a lot of times I'll just grind that out with a flap wheel, and that it actually does a really nice job. So I don't have to make those cuts, but it just depends on how deep that is. So you might be wondering, well, why am I not using the file that's in our project? Well, the reason is I did make a great video of our original file we picked at the swap meet, and we put in the fire and we annealed, and I showed you about the handle and everything. The problem is I'm terrible with the GoPro software, and I accidentally deleted it. Not sure how I deleted it, but I can't find it anywhere. So, but this is it. You see the curvature, that I put into it, just like I was talking about with the other knife. The only thing I don't have is me actually cutting with the angle grinder. So just have to take my word for it, and maybe I'll throw some video in later of cutting this this here, which is another file knife, which has a great big file I found. I think that's actually going to make a pretty cool knife. But for now, we're just going to have to deal with the fact that I don't have video of actually cutting this out. But you get the picture, and this was actually really simple. And this flap wheel is just so nice. You just sort of just grind it down, grind it down while it's in the vise, obviously. And it really makes it nice. And these angle grinders, you can get one at Harbor Freight for $17. I got this. It's a DeWalt, and I got it at a swap meet for 20 bucks, and it came with 3 wheels. So, but anyhow, that's how that goes. And I think the next part of the video we'll have to do is putting a bevel on it, a little bevel on there. So I'll show you how I do that. All right, let's get to work.